Six-time race winner in 2025. Defending world champion. And yet out in Q1. Max Verstappen steps out of the car, helmet off, and delivers a verdict that echoes across the paddock: you can't win a title like this. No crashes. No rain. No red flags. Just raw pace, and it wasn't enough. And for the first time in almost a decade, Verstappen's driving wasn't the issue. Red Bull was. The words didn't come with rage. They came with something colder: conviction. After stepping out of the RB21 and removing his helmet, Max Verstappen looked straight into the cameras and said what no reigning world champion had said since the hybrid era began: you can't win a title like this. That wasn't frustration. That was clarity. A verdict from a driver who has spent the last 4 seasons building a legacy of dominance only to watch his machinery betray him on the most basic level: pace. This wasn't an accident. There were no red flags. No technical retirements. No rain chaos. Verstappen was eliminated in Q1 not because of bad luck, but because the car he was given could not compete. That's the headline. Not a blunder. Not a fluke. But a pure pace elimination on merit. A cold, statistical failure that unfolded in real time. 1 minute and 10 seconds flat. P16. Out. No rebuttal. No rescue lap. And for the first time in years, Verstappen was powerless against the clock. The Brazilian Grand Prix has often been a theater for Verstappen's brilliance. We've seen him win in the wet, slice through fields, dominate sprints. Interlagos is a track where driver instinct and car synergy matter more than outright horsepower. And yet this time, all that instinct, all that racecraft, was shackled by a car that refused to grip. The RB21 bounced over curbs. It snapped in mid-corner. It drifted on exit. There was no platform. No trust. Just chaos underneath him and a stopwatch that wouldn't wait. Sprint pace had masked the deeper issue. On Saturday morning, Verstappen finished 4th in the sprint, not great, but respectable. So what changed? Everything. Red Bull went into the afternoon qualifying with a new setup: softer suspension, higher ride height, modified floor. They wanted to fix ride quality. But instead, they broke the core structure of the car's grip generation. Verstappen knew it the moment he hit turn 1. The car rides better, he said. Then a pause. But there's no grip. None. That sentence was the entire lap report. What failed here wasn't just grip, it was belief. Belief in the simulation. Belief in the engineering process. Belief that changes made in the garage would produce forward momentum. Verstappen gave the team clear feedback after the sprint. He trusted the adjustments. And when he pushed in Q1, the RB21 gave him nothing in return. That gap between expectation and execution is where trust begins to fracture. And in this case, it fractured on live television, with every sector time proving that something fundamental had gone wrong. The first signs of trouble weren't on the timing screen. They were in Max Verstappen's hands. From the moment he exited pit lane for Q1, the body language of the RB21 was different. At turn 2, the rear stepped out unnaturally. Into turn 4, the front refused to rotate. It wasn't dramatic. It was disconnected. Every steering input came with a question mark. And when a driver like Verstappen, known for feeling grip through his fingertips, looks unsure, you know the car is lying to him. This wasn't a one-lap glitch. It was the result of an aggressive overnight change in setup philosophy. After finishing P4 in the sprint, Verstappen made it clear the ride was too harsh. The car was physically punishing to drive, especially over the curbs and compressions of Interlagos. In response, Red Bull softened the suspension and raised the ride height. On paper, this would help the car breathe more. But it also meant lifting the entire aero platform away from the track, neutralizing the floor, the diffuser, and the high-pressure zones that give the RB21 its downforce identity. That shift had catastrophic consequences. Verstappen lost rear grip almost everywhere. Through the technical middle sector, the backbone of a fast lap at Interlagos, he simply could not carry speed. The RB21 began to behave more like a midfield car than a title contender. Every lift on corner entry, every delay on throttle, every minor correction added tenths. The stopwatch added them faster than Verstappen could claw them back. And once he crossed the line, the damage was irreversible. P16. 6/10 off the pace. Q1 exit confirmed. It's important to understand that this wasn't a mistake of effort or commitment. Verstappen's lines were clean. His braking points were surgical. He didn't overdrive the car, he adapted to its limitations. But those limitations were mechanical and aerodynamic. The tires were in the right window. The engine was delivering power. But the chassis wasn't transmitting grip. It wasn't that Verstappen underperformed. It's that the car underdelivered to such a degree that even Max couldn't drive around it. The pressure Red Bull is facing now comes not just from McLaren and Mercedes but from within. After Adrian Newey's gradual departure from the technical core, the team's concept evolution has lacked cohesion. That's not to say the car is bad. It isn't. It's still quick in clean conditions. But its operating window has narrowed. It's become temperamental. Too stiff in one session, too loose in the next. Verstappen is adapting, but adaptation without consistency becomes survival, not dominance. And Formula One doesn't reward survival over a season. The bottom line? Red Bull gave Verstappen a car that solved the ride problem but stripped away his tools to attack the lap. In trying to fix comfort, they broke confidence. And in qualifying, where confidence translates directly into lap time, that mistake became terminal. Max Verstappen did everything right. The system around him didn't. Interlagos is a unique circuit not because of its layout, but because of how it exposes car weaknesses. The mix of elevation, off-camber corners, and aggressive curbs forces every team to make compromises. But Red Bull's RB21 doesn't tolerate compromise. It's a car that demands precision. Its entire performance philosophy is built around the low ride height and aggressive floor geometry. Any deviation from that, even a few millimeters, and the floor stalls. That's what happened in Brazil. Red Bull adjusted the car to ride the track better, and in doing so, broke its own aerodynamic core. The setup change wasn't random. It was a response to a real problem. Verstappen had been complaining about violent behavior over curbs and chassis oscillations that made braking zones unpredictable. So the team softened the suspension and raised the floor. The intent was clear: protect the car, protect the driver. But Formula One is a sport of consequences. By raising the ride height, the car moved away from the ideal ground effect envelope. The result? The downforce collapsed. The RB21 didn't just lose grip, it lost its entire stability profile. Verstappen immediately felt it. On the first push lap, the car floated through turns 1 and 2. Into turn 4, a key overtaking in lap building zone, the rear stepped out unexpectedly. By turn 8, he was already behind the delta. Not from mistakes, but from corrections. His throttle traces showed hesitation. The steering input data revealed excess angle signs of a car not responding on rotation. The most telling stat? Verstappen never reached full throttle before the apex in the middle sector. That's unheard of for a driver who usually bends the car to his will. The tire data confirmed the loss of aero load. Rear temperatures dropped during the push lap, the opposite of what should happen. In a well-balanced car, tires heat up during acceleration and cornering. But if there's no grip, they slide without building energy. That's what Verstappen faced. A car that skated rather than bit. And because this was Q1, with no red flags, no safety nets, and only one run plan in place, he had no margin to reset. Once the car fell out of sync with the tire window, the session was lost. Red Bull had experimented with different floor specs during the weekend, even splitting versions between Verstappen and Tsunoda. But none of the variants restored the aero harmony the RB21 relies on. And with park firm rolls locked in after qualifying, there was no chance to recover balance for the race without penalty. Verstappen knew it instantly. His comments in the garage post session were direct: "We changed the car, and now I can't drive it." That sentence, short and surgical, described an entire aerodynamic breakdown in one line. This wasn't just a missed setup. It was a structural exposure. A revelation that the RB21 dominant in perfect conditions becomes unstable when pushed outside its ideal ride height. That makes it vulnerable. And in a title fight where every weekend counts, vulnerability is the last thing Verstappen can afford. Red Bull gave him a car that was easier to ride but impossible to qualify. And that's not a trait a champion accepts. When Max Verstappen stood in front of the microphones after qualifying, he didn't raise his voice. He didn't point fingers. But what he said cut deeper than any public outburst. "You can't win a title like this," he admitted, arms crossed, face unreadable. That wasn't a reaction. It was a reckoning. For the first time in years, Verstappen, the man who turned pressure into routine, who shrugged off chaos with lap records, openly questioned whether Red Bull still has what it takes to fight for a championship. His body language said everything. Calm, but drained. Focused, but distant. Not furious, but disappointed in a way that only comes when expectations have been broken by people you trust. Verstappen has carried this team through regulation changes, technical resets, and rival resurgences. But champions don't speak that way unless they feel alone. And in Brazil, Verstappen didn't sound like a man defending his team. He sounded like a driver protecting himself from further disappointment. The gravity of the moment wasn't just in the words, it was in what they symbolized. This is a driver who has made mental toughness his signature weapon. He's been in title fights. He's faced the media storm. He's raced wheel to wheel in the rain, in chaos, under protest. And he's come through. But this time, the threat wasn't outside. It was inside the garage. He trusted the engineers. He delivered clear feedback after the sprint. They promised improvement. And instead, the car regressed. That's not just technical failure. That's emotional erosion.